Chapter 9. Breakdown. When Dwayne Martin, on the set with me for The Inkwell, a movie where we were shooting in Wilmington, North Carolina, first mentioned that his good friend Will Smith wanted to fly in to talk to me about a role, I said, cool. I had time. I was in Wilmington, for crying out loud. He's flying in tomorrow. We didn't have many options for where to go. We were staying on the outskirts of Wilmington in the glamorous suites of the Holiday Inn. Next door, there was Hooters, yes, home to waitresses in tight T-shirts, serving pitchers of beer and carrying trays of hot wings. Our only other option was a janky, dimly lit Chinese restaurant with a southern twang, which seemed so unnatural for some reason. Will arrived in North Carolina from Atlanta, Georgia, where he was working on a project, and Dwayne and I met at the Chinese restaurant. Will began by saying that he'd flown down to ask me personally if I would play his girlfriend as a series regular on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The sitcom had been a huge success for several seasons, so the answer was seemingly a no-brainer. The show was proven, but at this time, I wasn't interested in going back to television. Since Menace, a lot of movie opportunities have become available to me. As nicely as I could, I explained to Will, "Thanks for flying all the way here, but I don't want to do TV right now. Thank you for the opportunity." And that was that. Will was gracious and understood, and left as swiftly as he had arrived. Dwayne started giving me a hard time at the restaurant and then accompanied me to my suite at the Holiday Inn. Not glamorous, but roomy, to convince me to reconsider. His concern was that Hollywood wasn't regularly turning out lead roles for black actresses. He also stressed the importance of a guaranteed income on a crossover mega-hit comedy series like Fresh Prince. It didn't have to interrupt my film career, he pointed out. "You can do both TV and movies, you know," he said. I agreed, only that's not what I want to do. Despite the odds, I wanted to take my shot at being a film star, even though I had nothing slated next. That was a risk. By the same token, what if I went back to doing TV and lost my hard-won foothold as a film actress? Dwayne wasn't having it. He felt I was banking on longevity that was unrealistic. How many scripts are being written for black actresses, Jada? Don't be stupid. I can't let you turn down this kind of financial security. Get cashed up and make movies on hiatus. Although he had a point, I stayed firm. I don't want to. Dwayne was pissed and did his best to convince me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. It was a heated exchange, but I wouldn't give in, to the point that when he left my room, I slammed the door on him. Shortly after he came back, knocked, and asked in a conciliatory tone, "You want to go get a drink?" After opening the door a crack but keeping the latch on, I called back, "No, go to Hooters by yourself." Then I slammed the door again. Discussion over, and Dwayne left it alone. My decision was sound. I believed then and now. Movies gave me the opportunity to do a variety of roles, go from project to project, and not be stuck in one role on TV, under contract, when you didn't always have a Debbie Allen to fight for you to do movies. As those other opportunities came, including films like Set It Off and A Low Down Dirty Shame, and I was climbing the ladder to leading lady, I had to learn to adapt to other challenges. As a case in point, when I was up for Jason's Lyric, my audition process lasted until the final hours before principal photography began in Houston. Up for the title role of Lyric, a dreamer who wants to get out of the life she and the other characters are stuck in, I flew in for my final in-person audition, where Doug McHenry, director, and George Jackson, producer, were deliberate. Not sure I could pull off the role because, once again, I was rough around the edges. Doug's vision was that, like the character's name, the actress who played her would have a softer essence and a quality in juxtaposition to the harsh realities of her environment. This quality was supposed to be her enchanting appeal. I was clear. I wasn't quite that. The audition was a chemistry read with the wonderful Alan Payne, the film's lead. Alan, respectful, a gentleman, and a very giving artist, made me feel welcome right away. We had a dope rapport, no question, and the readings went very well. At the end of the session, the director and producer began to confer, sending out for people from hair and makeup as I stood there, unsure what was going on. There was something not quite right about the hair on my head, I heard them say, as they discussed how to remedy that. There was also talk that I was literally hairy. My eyebrows were bushy, and my upper lip had a bit of fuzz on it. As I crossed my arms and stood under the microscope of what's wrong with Jada and her lack of pretty softness, my soon-to-be very close friend, Maxine Rennies, head of the hair department, was summoned into the room. She was tall and lovely. She reminded me of a gazelle of sorts, but less fragile, and with a sweet, cheerful voice. She looked at me and asked, thoughtfully yet confidently, "Is it okay if I touch your hair?" I nodded, and she threw her hands into the cacophony of the bushy mess. She could see that my hair had been damaged after a few films where the hairstylist didn't really know how to care for it. What I loved about Maxine from the gate was that she had an out-there sense of style. Her hair was like a medium afro of short blonde dreads. She was fly in her baby tee that showed a little tummy, a plaid-pleated miniskirt, and high-heeled ankle boots with really long legs standing in them. So, when Maxine asked if she could cut my hair, it was how she asked, with such confidence, coupled with her fly style, that made me say yes. She smiled that adorable cartoon character grin of hers and said, "I have something so cute in mind for you." Judy Murdoch, who was the head of the makeup department and Maxine's close friend, was ordered to wax my brows and upper lip. After a complete makeover, I was presented to Doug and George. With that, and with poor Alan Payne advocating like hell for how perfect he thought I was for the role, Doug and George finally gave me the thumbs up. Thanks to Maxine and Judy, this movie was a turning point for me, helping me to soften those edges. Jason's Lyric was the first movie I'd done that had an explicit love scene in it, which I did not want to do. The producers had agreed up front to hire a body double, but had a very tough time finding one that was a match to me. Later, I had the same issue on Set It Off and didn't see the mismatch until the screening. The body double's juicy booty, though really, really appealing, was not my less juicy booty. I liked making movies, although the daily whiplash challenging my worth got to me. Baby, I would be constantly reminded, more than ever, how inadequate I was, while being praised at the same time. For a 20-year-old, it was confounding. It was like being on a hamster wheel, on a merry-go-round, chasing a carrot. Your performance is stunning. And about the poster for Jason's Lyric, is that your thigh showing? We're so sorry. It's too provocative, so we're taking your thigh out. Also, you're so funny. That dress makes you look like a black girl. That's not for the red carpet. Your eyes do so much acting. Black girls on the cover don't sell our magazines. I was already tired of being kissed on one cheek and backhanded on the other. It was one thing to embrace self-improvement and to adjust to standards of being a leading lady, but where did it end? How could you play the game without getting too caught up? To the point where you let the game identify you completely. I had no solutions other than swallowing my discomfort, which I was used to doing. It was a run for the roses to avoid any gnawing insecurities or discontent. They would only slow you down. Maxine, a dream seeker in the best sense, a native of Canada, had been hoping to move to LA to work on more films when we met on Jason's Lyric. After I suggested she come on out and be my roommate, she made the move in no time. Maxine would not take no for an answer when she said that she was going to throw me a 21st birthday celebration. I tried to brush her off with, I don't want a party, Maxine. You do so much for other people and you never let anybody do anything for you. I just want to celebrate you, she whined at me in the sincerest way. Deep down, I was afraid of disappointment. What if nobody showed up? I resisted, but Max was determined. Eventually, I got to, fine. The biggest smile came over her face, and she hugged me so tight. Thank you, Jada. It's going to be the best party. And she was right. She outdid herself, organizing a night at Creek Alley, a West Indian restaurant on Melrose Avenue, and oh my goodness, I couldn't believe how many people showed up. There were athletes and rappers, actors and actresses, a star-studded who's who of friends of mine or friends of friends. The restaurant was tiny, so the party spilled out onto the street corner. There were all kinds of great food, a male stripper, a full bar, dope music, and a video playing on a screen as a birthday tribute, with some very special footage, including the video of Parents Just Don't Understand that Pac and I made in high school. Everything Maxine did, putting so much time and care into this celebration, was out of love and appreciation. I was beyond touched. Nobody had ever done anything so special for my other milestone birthdays. My 16th had gone under the radar, so had my 18th, but not my 21st. Pac came through, and when he saw the video of us lip-syncing, he was not thrilled. He pulled me into a corner to ask, "Who put up that video?" "Pac, stop tripping. Ain't nobody thinking about you." I laughed, realizing, oh yeah, here I was, like his sister bringing out his baby videos. Of course, Dwayne was there, and at one point, I brushed past Will, who was leaning against the wall, and he wished me a happy birthday. "Thank you, Will." And that was that. It was a really good time had by all. Max was a little older than I was and knew what a rite of passage turning 21 was, and she wanted me to have the gift of a magnificent memory. It's one of so many fond shared moments with her that would mean even more in the future. There was something else, however, about the high of my 21st birthday. My life was on such a promising trajectory, but the high couldn't be sustained. Highs, by nature, are fleeting. A fall was inevitable. Earthquakes are very hard to predict. Sometimes you feel tremors ahead of time, but that's not a rule. Often they come on suddenly. This is how I can best describe an otherwise uneventful day as I'm driving down Melrose Avenue. A girlfriend recognizes me driving by from her car and flags me over. I make a U-turn in the middle of the street to follow her car to the curb. I hop out and we greet each other. "How have you been? I haven't seen you in a while." She says this warmly with a gentle smile. "I know," I begin, and then realize that suddenly I'm not talking and my body is hot, really hot, and I'm starting to shake. There's a war going on inside of me. I burst into tears out of nowhere. What's happening? I'm both startled and confused. My girlfriend can see I'm in trouble. "I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on," I whine. She reaches out and tries to grab me. "Are you okay, Jada?" she asks, but I can't even answer. Turning to go, I climb back into my car and drive off. But in moments, I realize I'm too rattled to drive. When I reached the next corner, I turned onto a side street, parked, and tried to pull myself together through torrential tears and an avalanche of emotions. I felt incredibly anxious. My heart was beating out of my chest. My breath was short, and I couldn't fight off a tidal wave of sadness, a despair that was going to drown me if I didn't get control of myself. It felt like fear and relentless sorrow had sucker-punched me. When I got home to an empty house, sadness gave way to an urge I'd never experienced, that this hurt inside needed to be stopped, that it was so unbearable, The only option was to stop living. The more I tried to unthink the image of slitting my wrist, the more afraid I became that I would actually do it. For the first time ever, I didn't trust myself alone. I called my mother. "Ma, I need you to come out here right away, because if you don't, I'm going to kill myself." As soon as we hung up, Mom began to make arrangements to get off work and come to Los Angeles. In the meantime, I desperately needed eyes on me that second, and Maxine was out of town working. My next call was to my homegirl, MC Light, who was also on the East Coast. "Light, I need you out here." I told her that I didn't feel safe with myself. She dropped everything and was on the next plane smoking to LA. No questions asked. I was hopeless. I had never had suicidal thoughts in my life. I had never felt this level of despair. Once she got to me, Light literally brought her light into my darkness, not leaving my side for a minute of the day, not asking questions. She was such good company, keeping me grounded and distracting me from feeling unhinged. Never one to go into drama, she normalized my days, as did my dogs. Routine can be stabilizing. We get up, go to my favorite breakfast spot, Vivian's, and then go out with the rots. More than anything, Light was an anchor in a stormy sea, a symbol that everything was going to be okay until my mom flew in. When my mother arrived, my seams burst all over again. Mom was only a year into her sobriety then, and she had only 2 weeks to stay, during which she did the best she could to comfort me and help. After working her steps in recovery, she was in touch with how I could be affected by our history. "You know, Jada," she would gently suggest, "you probably have a lot of stuff to talk about with a therapist, even anger toward me." I didn't want to look at the possibility of being angry at my mother, not at that point. She then suggested we do therapy together. The prospect of opening up that entire Pandora's box with my mother was too much just then, and I knew that. But I did know that I needed help, and that prompted me to reach out to Debbie Allen, a phone call that began, "I'm not doing good. I need some help, somebody to talk to." Debbie, as always, sprang into action on my behalf and arranged for me to be seen the next day by Dr. Sally Gregg, the sweetest therapist who, without a doubt, saved my life. After my first session with her, she requested that I see a psychiatrist so I could be prescribed some meds. The psychiatrist diagnosed me as clinically depressed and put me on Prozac. I resisted. I protested to Dr. Gregg. "I don't want to be on medication like I'm crazy or something." "Jada, this medication is simply to help get your head out of the gray clouds so you can actually deal with your issues that are coming up for you. This won't be forever, and you are not crazy." After a beat, Dr. Gregg reassured me. A lot of people get a little assistance to help relieve overbearing depression. She had such a warm maternal nature, and I believed and felt her sincerity. I relinquished my resistance when we agreed to the plan that once I'd stabilized, I would get off the Prozac pronto. The process took longer than expected. Once I began the medication, I was not happy that it killed my libido. That wasn't going to work for me for a long period of time. Sex was the one great thing going on in my life. However, as Dr. Gregg promised, the meds helped me get my head above the gray clouds, and therapy helped me begin a journey of emotional healing. Now, at least I could see where the wounds came from, then slowly begin the daunting work of forgiveness and acceptance. In my early passages of healing, I was ready to be done with Hollywood and bought a farmhouse outside of Baltimore. It required a lot of renovation, but the plan was for me to move back home. This way, I could fly to LA or go to New York for auditions, but I no longer wanted to be in the Hollywood mix. I needed some peace. I needed some quiet. I needed to breathe. Even running is part of the process. It is only human to do so, but not for long and not forever. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves, Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype. One of my favorite observations offered up by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, one of my longtime mentors on the page, is the understanding that running is part of our human experience and can lead us both astray and back to ourselves. Fight or flight is wired into our DNA. Even while in flight, I was aware that something was welling up in me that needed to be examined. An unimaginable pain threatened to consume me, and my fear was that if I gave it more attention, it would make good on its threat. And sometimes that's exactly what happened, but not for long. Once we stand our ground and face the source of the pain, it can't kill us. The more we ignore our hurts, the more we run, the more power we give them. This takes us out, and for some of us, to our grave. Often our pain is simply a communication encouraging us to ask for help. With the belief that we can be helped, it's easier to recognize that our state of desperation is our wound screaming, "Heal me." When we cease to fear our wounds and cover them in love, they begin to heal and eventually transform into a flower, a prince, a queen, a gift. But we can't do it alone, and we are not meant to. If you can have the courage to believe it's okay to cry to the universe for help instead of, "Why me?" a door will open and a healing in some form will come. For those who struggle with suicidal thoughts, I pray you come to understand that you are worthy of your healing. One day at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. Hold on, have faith, get help. Find someone trained to guide souls through the dark hours and to remind us that our suffering is not meant to take our lives, but instead can lead us to the life we deserve. Today, give yourself the gift of choosing to look at a wound you may have been running from. Can you see what it might be trying to tell you? Can you accept that you are worth the help you may need?